in a small cell phone, you cannot do that, right? They won't fit. So you have to split your application to two applications, three applications, two activities, three activities, okay? And your layout should be divided, right? So all of these can be done not very easily, but very accurately with fragments, okay? So this was the reason for having fragments. Last week, we discussed about how to make static fragments. It means, if you remember, we made XML file, right, layout file, and we put fragment and fragment inside it, right? Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just to make sure, we use fragments instead of just layout and then activity, because fragments are interchangeable between activities and layouts are just stapled into the activity.
That is correct. Yes.
Because it's modular.
Everyone cover it tonight. Be careful. If you remember, we made, first of all, we made fragments, okay? Fragments are nothing but the Java code. Do you remember that? Java code, but fragments are not activities. Some of the students send me email and said, Abbas, we have learned that fragments are sub-activities. 100% wrong. Fragments are not sub-activities. Fragments by themselves have no mechanism to do anything. Fragments should be under the umbrella of activity. Because fragments should be part of activity, right? Fragments by itself have no activity capability, okay? They don't have context, they don't have view, they don't have anything, okay? So be very careful. This is wrong that if I ask you what is a fragment and you say fragment is nothing but sub-activity, I'm not going to accept that. It's not, this is completely wrong definition. Unfortunately, I have seen some of these kind of definitions in the internet that is completely wrong. I think some kids have made that kind of thing. This is not right. Be careful about that. So fragments, actually, very simply, we could say the Java code, okay? Fragment is a class that extends fragment for any subclasses of fragments. Okay, we have a list view fragment. We have, there are a variety of different fragments available, fragment classes available that I'm going to talk about some of them if the time allows. But most of our fragments are made in a way that we just write class such and such extends fragment. Okay, all it does. It's a Java program, and you could in this and you could make as many fragments as you want separately. Let's call them frag1.java, frag2.java, frag3.java. Each fragment should have its own separate XML layout file. Okay? Each fragment should have its own separate XML layout. Okay?
And maybe even two for each, one for portrait and one for landscape?
Well, I haven't gotten into that yet. You are a little bit ahead of me. You are about 1 minute ahead of me.
Just one, okay.
I'm
right there, though.
That, right?
Okay.
I just started talking about how to make
Cut
a
up
fragment.
fragments.
The reason that I am repeating this stuff is a lot of questions arise after the class last time, and students send me email, had a question. So I thought maybe the subject was a little bit tricky, and I want to clarify it for a couple of minutes at the beginning of our discussion before we continue talking about dynamic fragments tonight, okay? So we are making as many fragments as necessary, okay? One student said, Abbas, should there be any kind of relationship between these different fragments? Not at all. Each fragment is a separate program, okay? Separate Java program. And there should not be any relationship between, maybe they should, but that is totally another story. So you could make fragments that have some relationship with each other, or you could make a fragment that has no relationship whatsoever. Let me give you an example of relationship. Let's say you are making two fragments. One is collecting data interactively. Let's say using edit text, right? One fragment with the edit text in it and getting data interactively. And after that, this data that you are receiving from fragment one will be sent to fragment two through bundle or through intent, either is up to you. So fragment two receives this data, and what fragment two has is nothing but text view, right? Text view. So edit text in one fragment, text view in another fragment, right? One is receiving data interactively, send it to the second one display it, right? Following? So in this example, there is a sort of relationship between data communication between fragments, right? But not all of the fragments should have a kind of relationship with each other. Separate fragments, separate jobs, right? So whenever you need them, you got to put them together, put some of them together, all of them together, depending on the size of your view, if you have enough size, if you are in a portrait, if you are in landscape, if you are on TV, not on a wristwatch, depending on many different factors that how many fragments could be combined together, okay? Following? So this is the, and depending on your need too. So this is the, actually philosophy behind having fragments. So fragments are standalone Java program, which Java program should extend the fragment class or any subclasses of fragment class. And each fragment need to have its own XML layout file. Okay. Now, when you are combining fragments together, we discussed about it last time. There are two ways that we are combining fragments together. One way is statically. It means we are making a layout, as we did, and we put all of these fragments or some of these fragments into that. You remember fragment, when I put in the XML, and that XML could be, normally we put it into the landscape, because the landscape folder, because too many fragments side by side could not fit into what? Any portrait screen, right? So we said we put it into the landscape, and that's it, the whole thing, okay? But we did it statically, right? And after that, we made a separate Java program that could, pretty small, that could take advantage of this new landscape XML layout, okay? And that's it. This was the whole thing that we discussed last, right? Okay. Now we are getting into more serious about fragments. First of all, I have not given you any homework assignment about fragments, right? This subject is very important subject, and we have one homework assignment is designated for this subject. That is homework assignment number 2. Homework assignment number 1, if you remember, just about making a program that displays something in landscape and portrait. But number 2 is a little bit different. We are talking about fragments. You could make this homework assignment dynamically. It means using dynamic fragment, which I'm going to explain to you guys tonight. You could make it static fragment, as I explained it last time. It means you're going to make, so whatever we covered last time would be totally adequate to this homework assignment, okay? Just make it XML, make separate XML layouts for each fragment and make separate Java program and put them together as you have in your notes, and that's the job is done. Or you could do both of them if you want. If you want to have a practice and learn about dynamic versus static, you are doing it. So before we start talking about dynamic fragments, let me give you the homework assignment, okay? And after that, we are talking about how to do dynamic. Okay, let's see my here. Good. Okay. We want to make an application that gives some information about cars. Okay. We want to make an application that would give information about cars. Okay. Following. So, what we're going to do is we need to have a list of cars. This list of cars could be placed in a list view, as I showed you last time. You remember list view? You could put it into array. You could put it into whatever. Okay. So, let me show you how the layout should look like in landscape, okay? And after that, how the layout is going to look like in portrait, okay? And see what's happening. So, in a landscape mode, we have, let's say this is our cell phone, right? We have a list view or array or any kind of container which you like this, which has bunch of cars. You don't have to put many, 4 or 5 or 6 cars would be more than enough. I just make up some names, okay? Let's say we have Honda, we have, let's say, BMW, and we have Kia, we have Corvette, and I don't have any more. That's good, okay? Let's watch it. And we are providing 2 buttons here. One of them is called price. Cool. And the other one is called power. It is how much horsepower the engine has. You could make up any number which you want, okay? Okay? So, let's say you select on Honda, right? So the item is selected. Now, you want to see the price of it. You click on price, it's going to give us, for example, $21,000. Right? If you click on power, what's going to happen? If you click on power, it's going to give you, let's say, 140 HP horsepower. Right? Now, the point is this: if you are doing this in landscape, it'd be okay, right? You have enough room for it. But if you want to do it in portrait, it's a little bit harder. In portrait, at most, you could do it like that. Because I have tried it, okay? This is going to be in a portrait.
Can't just turn my
You
numbers.
have your item here. This is your list view or array or whatever that has or contains your names of the cars, and you have 2 buttons. Price and power. No more room, right?
Oh, you don't have a button?
No, this is going to make it very ugly. Okay. So what you want to do in this case, so what's going to happen is this is very long.
Right, it's gone.
So in this case, when you click on price or power, the result is going to be another something like that, and display, for example,
And the question would be,
1,000
you call it a fragment
or
rather than another activity?
140 HP and so forth. Okay. Following? So this is gonna be our homework assignment. We want to make an application that is taking care of cars and their prices and power. In landscape, it looks like this. In portrait, it's gonna look like that. Okay. So in portrait, we need. So if you think about it, you could have two fragments. One fragment is this, and one fragment is this side. Or you could have three fragments if you want. I made it with three fragments, okay? But you know, it was a little bit too much. But it works. I made, this is one fragment, one fragment, one fragment. But if you think that's too much, this could be one fragment and that would be what? Another fragment. So your first fragment is gonna be a list view, it's gonna have a list view and a couple of buttons. And the second one is gonna have just a text view. In portrait, one fragment is gonna go to this activity, and after that, when you click on price or power, you need to create an intent to create another activity and call that. Okay? A little bit data transformation is data transferring is required because when you select, for example, price or power, you have to transfer it to here and display it, right? Following? So you need to learn how to transfer data between an activity and you know, another activity, or to fragment, from fragment to fragment, and that's it. This is the whole thing. Yes.
Okay, so when I get it working, if I push price without having pushed one of the other choices, the button either isn't available yet, or because you push Honda first, and then is the screen going to say, please choose a price, please push price or power, so that it physically does something when I push the button?
This is list view and buttons are always available.
Right.
Okay. So you need to select. If you don't select anything.
Right.
So.
And push something.
Nothing is gonna happen.
Okay.
Okay.
The error
Obvious.
message.
Yeah, I want to know what I'm supposed to make it.
Well, the way that I did was,
Make a toast.
let's say I
Choose one by default?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I made a flag. This is the way that I did. So when an item is selected,
It
I
moves
turned on the
the
flag to
default.
true, and I check the flag. If the flag is true, then
Use
it
that
means
one?
we have data, right?
Use that one.
And we click on price and get the price for it.
Okay.
Otherwise, if nothing is select
Right,
price,
that's
pushing
one.
on this, nothing would
And
happen.
the other way, when you push Honda to begin with, will it change anything in the application, or while it's waiting for the price or power button to be pushed? When I push that button, do I help them out and change the screen to, okay, now push price or power?
It's up to you. If
Okay,
you wanna
I
add
can
that.
try, I don't know.
Very good idea if you want, but what I really wanted to say right now is,
Get a button.
if you do not push price or power, this won't show up.
Right, not yet, yeah,
Okay.
that's the object, is to get that to work.
Because upon pushing price or button, you need to create an intent which would call another activity, and that activity would have what? Would have one
The fragment.
fragment in it, okay?
Okay, it's both calling an activity and the fragment
Fragment is
extending.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay. And at the same time, when you are creating the new activity with a fragment in it, you need to pass the data, right? The price of BMW, price of Honda, or whatever. Okay. This is pretty simple, but involved with some activities and how to do that. If you guys be able to do this, definitely you have made, you have learned a lot about activity, relationship between activities, relationship between activities, and fragments, fragment to fragment, and stuff like that. This is very nice. Okay. We are going to have 2 weeks to do that, guys.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks, not 1 week. 2 weeks. The reason that you're gonna have 2 weeks, you're gonna find out. You're gonna see some minor bumps in front of you doing it. Okay. I encountered that when I was doing that. So you need to little bit study more, and especially if you want to make it dynamically, it's a little bit harder than doing that statically. Okay, static was simple last time, but dynamic is a little bit more involved. Okay, which is the subject of tonight. So what I did myself was I made it using information that I provided last time. Okay, and it worked. And after that, I tried to make it dynamic. Dynamic took a little bit longer, but finally I have 2 versions of it, dynamic and static. Okay? So if you really, really want to learn, you could do it both. But if you want to just do the job and be satisfied with, only one of them is good enough.
What makes it dynamic? If we do it the way you taught us last week, it's static. We design it, code it up, it's static. What makes it dynamic?
Well, dynamic, it means this is very simple question. When you're making that static, it means you make everything just manually put there as we did, fragment, fragment, fragment,
Gotcha.
okay? And when you compile a program or run it, everything is already pre-made. But if you are making dynamically, it means at runtime you're going to make all of these fragments and put them into the container in a way that you want, right?
Like creates them from the list
all of
and
these
things like that. Okay.
Bleeding into 2 screens
Okay.
will be done at runtime. Okay.
Yeah. That way.
So dynamic would give you more flexibility that what fragment to pick up, how to put it there, where to put it there, and so forth. You know what I'm talking about? You have more flexibility.
Yeah.
This is the nature of dynamic.
Okay.
This is good, but it has some problems of its own too.
Like how
Okay,
big?
so I'm trying to give you a heads up that see we have a little bump in this in our in front of us tonight. Okay. So this was homework assignment number 2. Okay.
2 weeks.
This is very simple, but you need to do it. So it's up to you. Do it dynamic or static. All I need from you is again the source code and sample of op. Okay. In portrait and in landscape. That's it. Any comment or question?
Is this due next week or?
Due is 2 weeks from.
2 weeks from now.
Yes. As I mentioned, this is a little bit more time consuming than simple portrait and landscape. And specifically, if some of you guys want to learn more for yourself and want to do both static and dynamic, maybe you need more time to do both of it, okay? But if you are doing this for static and decide to make it for dynamic, all source codes are there. You don't have to change your fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3. All of the fragments are there, right? So all you need is just add a little bit code to make it dynamic, as you're going to learn, okay? But I haven't even started. Just want to ask a question. I don't know what kind of question you want to ask, because I haven't started talking about how to do that, right?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody has any comment or question about homework assignment number 2? No? Can we continue now? Okay. Let's continue to learn about how to do it in the dynamic. Okay. Okay, let me see how much I covered last time. I covered all of these. Okay, so in order to handle fragments dynamically, we need to be familiar with the special class, which is called Fragment Manager. Fragment Manager. The Fragment Manager class is in charge of dynamic fragments, okay? So, fragment manager. This is the name of the class. Okay. Fragment manager. What I'm doing. Okay. Good. So this class is necessary. We need to create an object of fragment manager whenever you want to work with fragment dynamics. This is the first. Now, after creating the object of the fragment manager, we need to do some transaction. We call it fragment transaction. Let me tell you what fragment transaction is, okay? You are adding fragments to your activity. You are removing, okay, fragments from your activity. You are replacing some new fragment with your old fragment, okay? Column. And you are doing this kind of activity. So you are sending data between fragments. And all of these collectively are called transactions. Okay? Transaction. Fragment manager has no capability for transaction. It means fragment manager doesn't know how to add fragments. It doesn't. Okay? So, in order to do the transaction, you need to create the object of fragment transaction. So we have another class which is called fragment transaction, which is in charge of doing adding, removing, replacing, and it's kind of things like that. Okay. So. Fragment transaction. Okay. So we need to have the object of both of these classes available for any dynamic fragments. Okay? So, whenever we are creating, whenever we are working with any fragment, okay, it means adding a fragment to our, let's say, activity or removing that, each fragment that we are adding should have the specific ID. Specific ID. We call it fragment ID. Fragment ID is a way that we are recognizing or finding out whether the fragment is already added to the container or fragment is not added, okay? Following? So we need to, if you want to remove the fragment, remove what? Fragment should have ID that you remove, right? This is a way that you're gonna find what fragment should be removed, what fragment should add it. Okay, so we need to have ID. Okay, yes.
Is that ID that's set with our resources? That
You're
ID?
gonna find out tonight. Okay, there are two different fragment. There are two different ways that we could give ID to fragment. One is through resource, as you mentioned it. The other one is simply created a string as a name. Okay, we call it tag 1, tag 2, tag 3, and give it to our fragment. Okay, we're going to learn about which one is better and cons and pros about each one of them. Okay.
They're attributes.
Yes.
Attributes.
Attribute?
It's an attribute.
No, fragment is not attribute. If you continue that, you're just ahead of me. Constantly stopping. Is this? I'm going to cover. You're going to find out what it is, right? Tonight I'm going to cover this for you guys. Okay? I'm just trying to tell you what a transaction ID is. I said each transaction have a name. This name is called ID, right? And you have to put it there. Otherwise, you're not able to add or do any transaction. To do the transaction, you need to give ID to your fragment. Okay. Okay. Now, let's go for starting part of dynamism in fragment in fragment. How to do that? Let's go. Okay. So, I need to start. First of all, we need to create the object of the fragment manager. Okay, we're going to do it like that. Let's say FM equals get fragment manager. Get fragment manager is one of the methods of the fragment class. Okay, is one of the methods of the fragment class. And this is the factory method. As you see, this is not a construct, okay? Because fragment manager doesn't have any useful constructor anyway. This is a factory method that is going to give us the object of the fragment manager. The very first thing that we have, okay? After that, once FM is created, we are able to create an object of transaction, okay? Fragment transaction. Let's say FT fragment transaction. Again, there is another factory method available to do that, and that is FM dot begin transaction. Begin transaction. Okay. Now we have all tools available. We made the object of fragment manager, and also we made the object of fragment transaction. Okay. So far so good. Okay. Now, once the FT is created, we are able to add, we are able to remove, and so let's go for to learn how to, for example, add, and after that, how to remove and something. Okay, let's go for. Okay, let's say we have made a fragment Java. Okay, we have made a fragment Java, and how can I say that? Okay, I'm going to write it down after I will explain to you. Okay. Fragment activity, let's say FA equal new fragment activity. What it is, fragment activity is one of those fragments that we made. Did you remember we made a couple of fragments last time? We called it frag 1, frag 2, and so forth. This is one of those fragments, okay? And I want to, for example, add this fragment to my dynamic. I want to add it dynamic, okay? So, the very first thing I need to do is you create the object of that Java class. What Java class? The class that extending fragment. Do you remember? Yes. Okay. Normally we are calling the default constructor to do that. So Now we have that object available. Now see how we're gonna add it, okay? To add, we are using one of the methods of the fragment transaction. This is called add. So we're gonna have ft dot add. Okay. R dot id dot fragment container and underscore container comma fa comma tag one. Copy it down, and after that I'm going to explain to you what I'm doing. And after this, we're going to have ft dot commit. If you don't commit, no adding will be done. No transaction will be done. After doing any transaction, in order to do it, you need to commit it. Okay? Okay, now let's go and talk about it step by step. Okay? When you are adding fragment, okay, you are adding fragment to what? Container, okay? So you need to make a container and add fragment to it. Let's go for here, okay? In this example, I have to make a container, and I'm going to add two fragments. This is one fragment with another fragment. Or I'm going to have three fragments if you want. One fragment, one fragment, one fragment. Following, depending on you, right? You need minimum two fragments, right? Now, in order to add, you need to have you need to have a container. Container refers to a very simple XML layout. Very simple XML layout, okay? So we are adding to that. So in this XML layout, let's say for that, you need to have, you're gonna have, let's say, depending on you, the simplest container would be nothing but the XML file containing, let's say, linear layout. That's it. XML with nothing but linear layout. Okay? Okay? That's it. This is the container, right? But here, that container would not be adequate because we need to we have some other thing, right? Okay? So, what kind of container you need for that?
Frame?
Well, I could say linear layout inside linear layout, for example. This is okay? Or I could say linear layout with the with orientation horizontal, right? Here, following, and inside that we need to have something for list view, right? We need to have something for buttons, two buttons, and we have to have what? Something for text, right? So we have to make this XML file. Follow me? Without any fragment, without any fragment. Do you remember we put fragment, fragment, fragment last time? We don't have to, because that is dynamic, right? So we need to have a container. Container simply means the XML layout, which could have all of these there. Okay? So when you're adding, it's going to go to the right spot. Okay? For this example, all I'm doing is what? All I'm doing is, all I need is just a container to have one fragment, right? Something like that. This is my container. Okay. and I put my fragment, whatever it is, okay? This is my fragment. So for this example, the container is pretty simple because it's nothing but linear layout, okay, and one item there, okay? All you need to do is taking care of Android layout width and Android layout height, and put that, okay? So what it is, fragment container I put here. This is the ID that you're gonna create, because when you create your layout, you need to have ID, right? It's the ID of your layout. Android : ID equals such and such, right? This is the ID of your layout. Okay?
The layout for the fragment.
Yes. Okay. I just called it fragment container. You could call it whatever. It's the ID. Okay. As you get r.id is the ID. We have ID for button. We have ID for text view. We have ID for everything, and also we have ID for our. Okay. Understand? So this is that ID. Now, FA is the object of the fragment class that we created, and now tag one. I said whenever you are adding any fragment, okay, you need to put ID for that fragment. So tag one is the ID for the fragment that you recently added here, right? If you're adding two fragments, you need to have two of these, tag one, tag two. Okay? Following? So when you are doing any transaction with any fragment, you need to put ID for that transaction, for that fragment. That's what I said, tag one. You could call it whatever you want. Yes?
So the fragment container ID is for the activity, like for the layout activity? Or is that for the fragment?
The layout, the fragment container?
Yeah.
Fragment container is a layout, is an XML layout.
Okay, but for the layout for like same for the activity, not for the fragment
Well,
itself.
I haven't put it into activity yet. Okay, we're going to talk about it. Okay.
Oh,
Somehow this will be accessed by activity. Okay, but we haven't started talking about activity yet. Okay, we're
Oh,
just
okay.
trying to add a fragment to a container. Exactly the way that we did last time, static. Do you remember? We made something last time here in our XML file. We said fragment, if you remember. Do you remember last time? We put something here, and after that another fragment. If you look at the notes, you're going to find out.
Yeah, but my question was because each fragment have its own XML file.
Yes,
So-
each fragment has its own XML file.
So is the container is for the XML file for the fragment or for the container itself?
Well, this is for that. This is the one that finally we're gonna use. This is gonna be accessed by activity, not by fragment anymore.
Oh, okay.
You remember we made that last time, and finally we made one Java program extend activity, and we access that, and in our set text view, set content view.
Content view.
We use that. If you look at your notes, you're gonna find out. Okay? The same thing, but everything that you did last time is the same. But instead of manually putting fragment here, you're gonna write Java code for that.
Oh, okay.
You
Instead
understand?
put the attribute ID is gonna be tag one.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay? That is correct. So, let's go
Okay,
back
right,
to our
that doesn't
subject.
claim it knows what fragment it is.
A little bit later, I'm going to show you how you combine this together in activity, okay? The very first thing I want to show you is how to add, okay? To add, all you need to do is create the object of fragment manager, transaction, create the object of the fragment Java class that you wanted to add, you want to add it to your container. And by using add, you're adding the container, and make sure that you're going to use a tag you're using a tag, I haven't finished that, your hand is gonna get tired, because I'm in the middle of talking, I'm not gonna answer your question.
Okay.
Because if I answer a question, I'm gonna be interrupted, okay? So when I finish that, I'm gonna say, anybody has a question, you can ask, okay? So, now after creating the object of transaction, we're gonna use an add, and we add it, and finally, we're gonna use commit, okay? You need to know something that is very important. Whenever you guys are adding any fragment, okay, it dynamically or statically, it doesn't matter. We did it last time statically, tonight it's going to be dynamic. You are in fact adding something to a group view, okay? Actually, VU group, I'm sorry, VU group, not group, VU group. We are adding directly to the VU group. If you remember, if you look at the your note from last time, you have seen when I was inflating the XML file, one of the argument was view group. Look at it. If you look at your return, okay, on create view. Look at the on create view, okay. On create view has 3 arguments, okay. Inflator, view group. Look at your notes.
And bundle.
Exactly, and bundle, okay. Inflator is in charge of inflating your XML, okay. View group is in charge of adding your whatever you have for your fragment, okay. And bundle is in charge of transferring data between fragment to fragment, which we're going to learn about tonight, okay? Now, the reason that whenever you're adding a fragment, it's going to go to the view group is this. View group, in fact, is nothing but the stack. We call it back stack, okay? Back stack. View group is back stack. Okay, we call it back stack. Okay. When you are removing a fragment from your activity, if you push the back button on your cell phone, you can switch it back. Following?
It adds it.
Yes. Okay. Let's say this is your activity, and you have added this item. This is your fragment. Okay. You have added fragment. Later on, you're going to remove this, and you're going to add another fragment into it, which I'm going to show you. This is the way that you're going to add fragment. Okay. Now, the one that is removed is already in the view group. So very easily, by pushing the back button, you could reverse it back. Okay. Follow me? So what I'm trying to say is when you are adding or removing something, your fragment is not dead. Your fragment is saved. It's saved in a view group, and very easily, by pushing the back button, you could bring it back.
Weird.
Yeah. Yeah, this is very interesting. Okay. Try it on your cell phone.
So you want to make a
When you
choice.
push the back button, see what's going to happen. It's going to bring it back. Okay. So let's come back to here. Anybody has any question about these 4 or 5 lines? Yes.
Is container a technical term or just a generic term you're using?
Which one?
Container.
Container?
Is it a technical term or a general term?
Well, I think I explained what container is. Container is the XML file. Okay, is a plain XML file, which we are using as a layout. Okay, and it has your layout manager.
So it's not a class for importing. Anything like that, it's just the XML file.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just XML file. That's it. Okay, it's an XML file, which this XML file should have. So the requirement for this XML file is it has to have a layout manager, linear layout or relative layout or frame layout, any of these. Okay. Normally there is a linear layout, but you could use the frame layout or some other layout which you want, and make sure that that layout that you're doing has ID, because you have to use that ID here. Okay, by using Android ID equals such and such. Okay. And after that, when you are adding or doing any transaction, make sure that you are using a special name that is called tag. Okay, name or ID for your fragment. Okay, each fragment should have ID. Otherwise, there is no way that you refer to it.
We could still, if it was in the back stack and you didn't have an ID, it would still come back, but when you need to actually mess with it in the future.
You are about a couple of minutes ahead of me.
Oh,
I'm going to get into it.
You never get to that.
Okay? Yes.
When you press, when the backstack is saved in the view group, it's gonna save the data.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I'm going to go back to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go to that. Okay. So let's continue here. Let's see. I haven't. But we have a problem here now. Okay. Normally, when we are doing this, let's say when we are adding, we don't do exactly like that, because what's gonna happen if you have already added a fragment, right? And you want to add it again. This is gonna cause a problem.
The same fragment.
The same, yes. This is cause a problem. Okay. So before adding a fragment to your container, you need to make sure that if that fragment is not already added to the container, if it is already in a container, any try or any attempt to add it again is going to cause error. Following me? I didn't make any. I didn't check it. I just closed my eyes and just said add, right, and commit. So right here, before adding, maybe it is a good idea that we make a kind of check if it is there or not. If it is not there, then add it. Let me show you how to. Okay, we're gonna talk about it right now. Okay, so show us about that. Okay. I'm gonna put it in another color to have your attention. I'm going to put it here. So before add, right over here, we need to add a line, and that is a step. Just right over here, before add. If FM or fragment manager dot find fragment by tag 1. If it is equal null, then add. Following? So we are checking if this is not added, then add. See how important the tag is now? This is a way that you are referring to a specific fragment. If tag 1 was already added, don't add. If it is not, add. So if it is equal null, it means what? It's not added, right? How this happens, okay? This is very important, okay?
You pushed one without pushing the other.
Yeah. It's gonna, well, actually, right away you get error message. If you don't, if it's already there,
Right.
try it again.
You just try to add it again.
Very easily, you could write the code and add these two lines two times, one after each other.
Or just by pushing the
Add,
button.
commit, add, commit. See what's gonna,
Uh-huh.
you
Good
get error
crash.
message.
Okay.
Okay, tag 1's already there, you cannot add it. Okay. So, question, guys?
So you just make a copy and then something else.
Okay. So we did that. Let's see how we could remove tags. Okay, how to remove fragments. Okay. So we learned how to add. Now let's see how to remove. To remove, we are simply doing this. We have created ST over there, okay?
Just fragment. Fragment activity, not fragment transaction manager. Just fragment. Unbelievable.
FT or F?
What, pardon?
FT or F?
Oh, something.
Okay.
Oh, that
This
matters
is
there.
the,
Isn't that just a typo? Why bother?
FT dot remove, see that, this is FT dot remove, yes. FT dot remove.
So there's a
Why not?
fragment. So is that fragment transaction or fragment?
Okay,
Because-
yes, this is the, well,
It's by fragment
remove,
manager. Fragment
Because
manager.
create a method
actually,
fragment.
let's put it this way.
We're all guessing whether it should be
Let me
fragment
let me do the right way.
manager or transaction up there.
Yes, I know that. Let me put it
What's that?
I say transaction.
You say transaction,
this
that's
way.
FT.
Dot.
FM is transaction manager, so I'll bet manager.
If you remember, remove and add and everything are the methods of the transaction. And we already made a
Is that what Bob is offering?
right
Mhm.
here.
Hmm?
That's not a small typo, we're right, we're right.
Nah, it's FT is the.
No, I mean on the first line where it says fragment, if it should say fragment manager, that's not a small typo.
Oh, okay.
That would be that would be mandatory? You think I should ask him?
Oh, no, it's just leave it fragment.
Okay. It's not one of the ones on this list?
Now, what am I doing here is trying to find the fragment first. I haven't finished, please put your
Okay.
hands down, okay? Because constantly interrupting me is kind of slow down the whole class, okay? There are two ways that you can find if your fragment is already there or not. One by referring to the tag of the fragment. The other one is by referring to the ID of the fragment. Okay. You remember from last week that whenever we are creating any fragment, you remember we made two fragment XML file, and each one had ID. You remember in our XML file we made something like that. We made two XML files for each fragment, and each fragment had ID. So in this example, I am using frag1 as one of the IDs that we already made. Okay. So one way that you could check if the fragment is already there or refer to a fragment is using ID, and that is done by find fragment by ID. The other way is going for find fragment by tag. Okay? Find fragment by tag. So either one of them would be okay. Find fragment by tag or find fragment by ID. Okay? Once you create the object of the fragment this way, you could remove it and okay? It's very straightforward. Yes.
I guess we should also check to see that F is not null before we try to remove it, so that it can't be removed twice.
Well,
I mean, if adding it twice is an error, then removing something that's not there, is that an error as well?
well, I wanted to complete that. You're a little bit ahead of me.
Sorry.
So, again, yes, you are right. This code is not 100% good because we need to make sure that fragment already exists. If the fragment does not exist, okay, any try to remove that would cause a problem, okay? How to check if the fragment exists? Right in front of you, right? So this is very important in, when we are doing transaction for adding or for removing or for replacing, okay? Because if the fragment already exists, adding fragment is going to cause a problem. If fragment does not exist, removal of the fragment is going to cause a problem. Okay, so in this case, you would, in order to remove, you should say if it is not null. If it is not null, it means it exists, right? So this is exactly opposite. If it is not null, then remove that. Otherwise, forget about it. Okay? So always make sure that you are doing checking before adding or before removing, or you're gonna end up with some big problem. Okay? Last semester, when I was correcting the homework assignment of students, unfortunately, I saw many students are not doing that kind of checking, okay, in advanced Android. And when I complained to them that this is not the right code, they said, "How was it working?" I said, "This is working, but this is you're lucky that it was not already there, so you added. But if it was already there and you're trying to add, it's gonna cause a problem. So you always need to check, right? So very important. This last.
Google had a problem like that too. In
Pardon?
Google, if you typed in a certain search term or algorithm into the search bar, it allowed your Chromebook to crash immediately because it tried to remove some fragments or some kind of, it didn't check for any nulls, and because it didn't check for any nulls, it allowed nulls to pass through, and so the CPU would pass all these nulls until it would crash. And because they didn't have the checking of the existence of that part of the program, it crashes.
That's correct. Yes, exactly. Yeah. How to replace? How to replace? Replace means you have a fragment already, and you want to remove that and put another one there, right? fallen. Of course, you could go through very tedious approach and you know, remove another ant, okay, which is not really nice. But you could go for replace, okay. There is the replace transaction available that you could remove your previous one and put the new one, okay. And that is done by FT for the transaction dot here method is replace dot ID dot fragment container, comma, fragment 2, comma, type 2. Okay? What it does is changing the current fragment, whatever the current fragment is fragment 2 in this container.
So it looks for the fragment with tag 2 and replaces it with fragment 2?
Yes.
And that from that point on, fragment 2 has this the tag 2.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So we assume that is a tag 2, okay? So we have a fragment, fragment 1, and we want to replace it with fragment 2, okay? So when we are replacing the fragment 2, we are calling this tag 2, okay? So tag 1 is gone, tag 2 is there, okay? In our container. So I repeat again. What this does is replacing our current fragment, whatever it is, with fragment 2, with we should put tag 2 in. It replaces current fragment. I didn't say what fragment. Current fragment. We assume that we have only one current fragment, okay? Current fragment with fragment 2. Okay? It replaces current fragment with fragment 2. If you do not want to do it, and of course we need to commit it, if you want to replace specific fragment with another specific fragment, you need to, this wouldn't work. Okay, this happens to all you need to do is delete the one that you want and after add the one that you want. Okay? So replace like that is gonna change the current fragment with what? With whatever you put there. But again, if you want to replace specific fragment with another fragment that you want, let's say you want to replace fragment 5 with fragment 6, okay? So you have to remove fragment 5, and after that, add fragment 6 to it, okay? What I do normally, I have made my own replace, okay? I call it master replace, that would do this kind of thing automatically. So inside my method master replace, I'm gonna remove, and after that I'm gonna add, all of them are done, okay? My own method, but no, this is the way it is. Okay, so we did that.
First word on the board of it.
When you
Just
say
fragment.
current
Or should be
fragment, is it the preceding fragment that was placed in the code?
Pardon me?
It's a whole
Say
part,
current
part of
fragment,
it. He's
is
got
that
the
the
proof.
proceedings
It's
fragment
public
in the
number.
code?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Very good.
Okay.
We'll pull it up. You type into Android, there's a menu.
Now we want to learn about how to do fragment communication. Fragment communication, it means how to send data between fragments and how to receive data from fragment and stuff like that. Okay? Because sometimes you need to send and receive. In our homework assignment number 2, we need to send data from one fragment to another fragment, right? So we need to learn how to. Let me show you my approach, okay? Okay. I need to delete the board. Can I delete the board? Did you guys take note? Complete.
Got it all?
Okay. I just want to make sure. See that? Last call. See? I could not delete it. Okay. First of all, you are in your activity and you want to send the data from your activity to your fragment, right? You're in your activity, you want to get the data and send it to a fragment, right? Okay? So, how to do that? How to send data from activity to your fragment. We're gonna use bundle. Let's say BU equal new bundle. Okay, and after that, BU dot put string. Whenever you are sending data, you need to provide key and value. Any name for key and your value. I just show it as key value, but you could put whatever you want there, okay? Your own key, your own value, whatever the data is. This is the data that you're sending, right? And after that, you're going to use this is the you need to create the object of your fragment class. Do you remember I said from last week, any fragment has its own Java code, right? Java code, and so forth. So this is a specific fragment. Let's say the name of the Java code is, the name of the Java is fragment class.java. So we need to create the object of it. Okay? We need to create the object of it. And after that, fc dot set argument and BU. Set argument in fragment is in charge of sending data. We are using set argument to send data. Okay? Send argument. So data is sent now. That already sent, right? So very simple. Create a bundle, put your data into put string, create the object of the class or your fragment class, send it to it. Okay? Yes.
This bundle, this is inside the, activity, not a fragment. This
Yes.
right here.
Yes.
This code is activity, correct?
Yeah, correct. Set argument, by the way, is the method of what?
Fragment class?
Fragment. This is a method in the fragment class, okay? And since this object, we are creating this object, and our fragment class was extending fragment, this is available. Okay? Yes?
This flag class is the class which you're gonna receive or which you're gonna send?
To send.
Send, okay.
Yes, I said activity is sending data
fragment.
to a fragment.
Oh,
So,
okay.
from, let's put it this way.
That's something we see.
Yeah.
That's where he made up the name. All right. I thought that was a Google standard. Fine. It could be anything.
What
Gotcha.
fragment is it sent to?
I've seen.
If you have more than two fragments, which one is
If
it?
you have more than
If
two,
you have more than two.
more than
which
two
one is
fragments,
it
so
sent to?
in this case, you need to create, I can show you. Let's say, if you have more than two, right? Or more than one, whatever. Frag class 2 equal FC2 equal new. Frag class 2, we need to create the object of that specific fragment, and after that you need to say FC2 dot set argument
Just confused me.
EU is sent to fragment number 2. The same for fragment number 3, fragment number 4, and so on.
So each fragment has its own class.
E-
And you cannot have
exactly.
two instances of the same
Each
fragment.
fragment has its own class. If you remember last week, when we made 2 fragments, we made 2 separate Java codes and 2 separate classes. Do you remember that?
But you can't have two instances of the same fragment class.
That's correct. That's correct.
I know. That's
Do
the
you
only
need
way
to
this
have-
would work.
Yes, this is the way it
It
works.
just seems odd because
Yes, it
it's
is,
so
but
flexible to be able to create multiple instances of your own fragment
Generic
subclass,
fragment class.
and then you could customize them by passing different bundles to them. So you would have multiple instances of the same class, but they would all be differentiated because they had all been initialized with different set arguments.
So you
So you're saying that you cannot do that?
you cannot do that.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay,
Wow.
that's
I know.
If you
important to know.
want,
Weird.
try it and see what's gonna happen.
Oh, yeah.
We really tried it.
They're all the same idea.
Tried all of it. You know, when I tried to learn fragments long time ago, fragment introduced to us in Android version 3. Okay, and I remember on those days Google had a class. Okay, and we went over there to learn. We were a group of people. We knew already Android very well, and the entire subject was a little bit unusual to us, okay? And we had lots of questions as now you're asking me, okay? So when I'm teaching you this, I'm putting myself in your place and say, oh, those days I had the same kind of problems too, okay? A little bit unusual, but a little bit, if you do practice, we see, okay. That's the way it is. Okay, guys, I haven't finished this. Now, now we send data to a fragment. Now we are going to go inside the fragment and see how we're going to get that data. You need to do it in your homework assignment, right? Because for example, you are selecting price or you are selecting engine power, and you need to send this information to the fragment. The fragment that has what? Has text view, right? And we display that. So now you are in a fragment, how to get the data that is sent to you. Data is sent, right? Now you need to learn how to get it. Right? Okay.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's put it this way. How to get the data. I would say these are in the fragment. Okay? Now we want to get that. Okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, you're in activity.
First of all, you need to override the do you remember last time we discussed on create view? You remember on create view? You need to override on create view. Inside on create view, you're going to get that. Let me show you how to do that. Add override. Public. You remember it says view. View on create view, and the arguments are, I'm going to put the arguments here. Layout
There you go.
inflator.
Something bundle.
Li, comma, view group vg, comma, bundle, d parentheses. At the beginning of our discussion tonight, I was talking about this, that I was talking about view group. You remember I said whenever you are adding any transaction, it goes to the view group because easily you put in the back. And bundle is used for transferring data back and forth. And inflator is for converting your layout, XML layout, to your view. Okay? That's what inflator does. Inflator is in charge of converting your layout XML to your real view. Okay. Now, can I delete this guys?
It'll tell you it's there. I'm just wondering whether that should be BU for his example. It's always B. Okay.
Okay. You have time here?
I think I understand, but in this case, he would call it the U.
Saying CR equal get arguments quantity dot get string key. Get string key is a key that we send. Do you remember? We send key and value right over there. Okay. So we are getting it here. Whatever you want to do with that, do with that. It's up to you. Okay. And after that, you need to return view. Return inflator template r dot layout dot fragment container, whatever the container is, false. We discussed about this line last time. Okay, so all you need to do is using get arguments, you get the data, and using set argument, you send it. Get arguments, this is a plural by the way, but that is singular. Make sure that you don't get a set argument, but get arguments. Okay? So, we are sending and receiving data this way, okay, by using set argument or get argument. Still, there is an old-fashioned approach to send data and receive data, and using the intent that we have learned in CS311D. Okay, we are going to create intent and send data, and we receive intent, right? The same way that we were doing before. Okay, creating intent and sending data using intent, you need to be careful that if you are in your fragment, there is no, this is not activity, okay? So the environment will be different. So you cannot simply create intent as easily you were doing that in activity, right? Because context doesn't exist, right? So you need to create a context, and after that, by using that context, you need to create intent, and after that, send that, receive that. So maybe this approach is a little bit easier, but anyway, if you want to go back to the way that you have already learned, using intent, you could still use intent to send and receive that. Okay? Guys, let's go for a short break. Some of the students are really in need of short break. They are sleeping. We come back and I want to give you the complete example about all of these stuff, okay?